me split it into two different answers because at our core, we're a point of sale software. So point of sale is primarily going to be used in a card present environment. So retail, our bread and butter historically has been restaurants, and we do restaurants really well. We do a lot of other businesses, but we do restaurants really well. So let's start the conversation with restaurants, retail, that type of thing. Our core value proposition there is number one, speed. Our platform is going to perform much faster than just about anything on the market.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. Your host here, Alessandro Cutri, joined today by Caleb Stanton, the CRO over at Blogic Systems. So definitely make sure to listen up, right, guys? We're going to have an interesting episode. And I'll just kind of kick it on over to you, Caleb, if you don't mind just introducing yourself to the audience and telling them a little bit about, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, Alessandro. So Blogic Systems, just to make that clear.
Noted.
So Blogic Systems is a point of sale provider and a payment processing provider. My background, I kind of cut my teeth in marketing and PR and started from the ground up and worked my way up like a lot of people. And I came into payments 4 or 5 years ago and eventually took over sales as well. And so really happy to be at Blogic. It's an awesome platform, awesome technology. And they brought me in just last year and just grateful to be here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I know we were talking about off camera. You've had quite the journey, right, in terms of being in this payment space for a while. And so, what was it that I know we talked about it, but I want to have the audience listen to this. What was it about Blogic that attracted you to obviously want to pursue a career at?
Yeah, such a good question. Because I came from a company that I loved. I loved being where I was, and I
Mhm.
wasn't looking to leave. I love the people there. They were really good to me. But what attracted me about Blogic, I would say two things. The first is the actual tech itself. The tech was awesome. I was blown away. There's a lot of specific functionality, and I won't bore you with it until we get later in the conversation if you want to hear it. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of specific functionality of our technology that I was hearing pain points from clients for years of, man, I knew a technology that did this or that. And when I started the conversation with Blogic, there was all these pain points that I'd been hearing about for all these years that they solve for. And I was like, that's pretty freaking cool. And so that attracted me. And then the next part of it is payment processing can kind of be like the Wild West. It
Mhm.
is oftentimes it's kind of known for there's a lot of fraud, there's a lot of emerging markets that are tricky. And one of the things that has always been valuable to me everywhere I go is the actual customer service, the actual customer experience.
Mhm.
And I came from a place that did that really, really well. And I made it very clear to Blogic from the outset that I wasn't interested in leaving for to be, with one of these guys who that's an afterthought. And so I needed them to, I kind of challenged them and said, I need you to prove to me that that matters deeply to you, and it's at the core of the brand. It's at the core of the actual operations of the company.
Mhm.
And their response to that, as I kind of led with that, like almost a
Yeah.
challenge of like, hey, if I'm even going to have this conversation with you, it needs to be under these parameters. And
Mhm.
their response to that right off the bat was, we're so glad you asked that question. You're the only candidate that even brought that up, and
Yeah.
that's so central to our brand. And so we just started the conversation from that understanding, and it made the whole thing go much more smoothly.
I love it. Yeah, and I think that's so important, right? And I think it was one of the things that we talked about, just having that alignment when it comes to working with companies and the values. That's what sets up these great partnerships and these great environments to be a part of.
Right.
Now, I'm curious because you've been inside the payment processing industry for quite a while now. What are some of the trends that you're seeing right now that are kind of happening within the market that you're kind of paying attention to?
Yeah. a lot of different trends. I would say one of the primary trends is simply the realization of many different ancillary markets that there's a lot of money to be made in payments.
Yeah.
And how this ends up playing out is there's a lot of other technology providers that say a CRM company or whatever that have realized, man, if we can actually just add payments into our ecosystem
Mhm.
rather than sending our customers or our customers' customers somewhere else to go actually facilitate the payment, if we can control that in-house,
Yeah.
um, that boosts our bottom line. And so the end result of that is embedded payments. What we call embedded payments is growing, exponentially right now,
Yeah.
where a lot of tech providers that have maybe never even considered payments as part of their infrastructure, as part of their ecosystem, are exploring ways of how do we get payments inside of our tech stack rather than pushing people outside of our technology to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And so I want to go back to a little bit earlier because you were talking about some of the specific functionality that you guys have at Blogic and talking through that. What would you say is kind of, Blogic's, value proposition as a company? Like where do you guys really stand out and what kind of makes you, in your case, one of one?
Yeah, love that question. So let me split it into two different answers because at our core we're a point of sale software. So a point of sale uh, is primarily going to be used in a card present environment. So retail, our bread and butter historically has been restaurants, and we do restaurants really well. We do a lot of other businesses, but we do restaurants really well. So let's start the conversation with restaurants, retail, that type of thing. Our core value proposition there is number one, speed. Our platform is going to perform much faster than just about anything on the market, especially during peak hours. So you're going to have cloud-based systems on shared servers with who knows however many other um, businesses operating on a shared server that during peak hours is just going to get bogged down. And your peak hours are probably your competitors' peak hours as well that's running on that same server. So everyone's peak hours tend to be, similar and systems get bogged down. We have a hybrid model where it's local on site, yet it has all the same benefits of the real-time cloud-based reporting. And so all the benefits of these cloud-based platforms without any of the problems.
Yeah.
So that's number one. That's our number one calling card. Number two, I would say, is UI. So we've designed the entire UI to require the minimal amount of clicks for really any operation you're trying to do. We call that an elegant solution. That's one of my favorite terms, dev terms, is if we can solve a problem in 2 steps rather than another platform doing it in 9 steps, how do we get there in 2 steps? And so the entire UI, and I can give you a number of use cases, is designed that whatever you're trying to do, it's in the minimal amount of clicks with the minimal amount of lag time as
Yeah.
possible. And so you're faster, the system itself is faster, and then the actual UI is so much faster because it's designed for an actual human using it. So I would say those are our two calling cards from a tech standpoint. And then on top of that, like I mentioned, the service, which includes like no cost customizations, things like I want the receipt to print in English, but maybe I'm an ethnic restaurant and maybe English isn't the first language of most of my kitchen staff. So I want the kitchen receipt to print in a different language.
Mm.
There's very nuanced
Interesting.
customizations like that you're just not going to find anywhere else. I kind of lump that in as an aspect of our customer service where we build in functionality based on customer requests. And so we end up having functionality that you just don't see anywhere else. So yeah, in sum, I would say speed, performance, UI, elegant solution, minimal clicks, and then that customer service.
Nice, nice. And so, and yeah, I could definitely see that from that perspective. And you guys have done a good job of kind of being able to differentiate yourself in that way, in that capacity. So I'm excited to see what you guys continue to do. I know you're still early on, and kind of building this out with them, and you just joined recently, and it's going to be interesting to see what you guys continue to pave out there. Uh,
Yeah, thanks.
but I wanted to just transition a little bit and talk through a little around some of your background, because you're predominantly been within the marketing and sales world. That's kind of been your bread and butter,
Yeah.
throughout your whole career, and obviously what you're driving forward for at Blogic. What advice would you be able to give to other sales marketing leaders that's kind of really served you well throughout your career in terms of really helping grow the company?
Yeah. I mean, the first word that comes to mind is proactive, be proactive. And I think maybe that's obvious, be proactive in um, going above and beyond and all that. But I think an aspect, maybe an underrated aspect of being proactive is be proactive in sharing ideas too.
Mm,
Um, in my experience, employers don't want someone who just says yes, who just nods their head. Um, I mean, that's great to a certain extent. They want you on board, but if you have an idea that has merit, that's well thought through, not just the first thing that comes in your head, but if you have a well thought through idea
yeah.
of how you're going to solve a problem, that's the other key is does this actually solve a problem or is it just something cool you want to do? But if you're coming in with like, hey, here's the problem that I see, here's a solution that I've thought long and hard about and I've laid out in a very clear and concise way. In my experience, employers value that.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that while you're still pushing and, you know, getting your stuff done and performing at a high level, and as a leader now, I value that deeply for my staff is if you can come to me and educate me, I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. I didn't get here because I know more than everyone. Uh, I want to hear what you have to say. I expect
Yeah.
it to be thought through. I expect it to solve a problem, but I genuinely want to hear if I'm doing something that could be better, if our technology can be better, if it's a process or an operation, whatever, and you figured out a way that you think might solve it, I want to hear about it. And so be proactive with your projects, but also be proactive with your ideas.
Yeah, and I think that's phenomenal advice, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, right? And you have to be able to bring people in, right, that can help kind of your blind spots in a way, right? And you don't
Sure,
always know, right? There's so many things that are going on that sometimes your team has a better sense of, that if they can come being proactive to you and come with those ideas, that's all you're looking for as a leader, right? To have those people be able to come to you. I mean, that's what you want out of your team, right? For them to come
no
to
doubt.
you, hey, we thinking about solving X, Y, and Z, because it takes less pressure and things off of you that you have to deal with, right? In that sense as well. So totally,
Totally.
totally agree. And it's about finding those right people in the pockets as well. And about bringing, if you are in that team setting, like being able to bring up those things, right? Like you said, it's super important. In terms of like practical strategies, right? Like practical things that you've always, been able to leverage at maybe company that you've been at. Would you be able to give like anything that you guys have been able to use in terms of like, hey, we, if it's cold calling, like, hey, we like just getting our name out, like just go meeting in people, like trade shows, what's been that thing that
Sure.
in your bread and butter that you've always like to kind of lean upon?
Yeah, I mean, again, I have a marketing background, so
Yeah.
I'll speak from that perspective, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, please.
Um, yeah, I would think everything in marketing from a funnel standpoint. And again, maybe that's obvious, but a lot of people want to go straight to sales,
Yeah.
and that's great. Sales is great, but a really good marketing strategy, if you just go straight to the bottom of the funnel, straight to like, how do we get business tomorrow? In my experience, it's a short-sighted strategy,
Yeah.
and it's hard to scale that strategy.
Yeah.
But if you start at the top of the funnel and strategically and methodically work your way down to the bottom of the funnel, where you're getting strategic alliances with other partners that really matter in your industry, you're having creative ways of establishing your brand and getting your brand out there, um, where both, your visual brand, but also your messaging, your story, like what do you want people to hear when they uh, hear intrinsically when they hear the name of your business,
Yeah.
and you're generating these greater connections, and then even within like your advertising strategies, funneling it there. Don't, not going straight to like I said, everyone wants to get there. They want to go straight to the sale, but tell a story first. Make something compelling. Talk about the customer. What are their
Yeah.
pain points? What do
Yeah.
they care about? Create content that matters to them, that they're actually going to want to consume and watch
Yeah.
and read or whatever it is. Like AI is great. I love AI. It helps with a lot of stuff, but if your blog strategy is you just plug stuff into AI and vomit it on your website, I'm telling you, that's not an effective strategy. Like what actually matters to your audience, and create content, be- creative content that grabs their attention. And then eventually, now that they know who you are, they've heard your name, they associate your brand with people who know what they're talking about. Now have a conversation about how what you want to sell to them, and how that changes their bottom line.
100%.
Um,
Yeah, I think
but
that's a
yeah, don't
great
just go
point.
straight to that. Like it's this tendency you want to just like, all right, let's just get business tomorrow, and like try to have a try to have a bigger view.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a strategy, right? You have to take because you always have to think about the journey you're taking customers on, especially prospects in that sense too, right? What stage of their buying journey are they at, right? Like
Yeah,
where are they, and how do you, if they're unaware, how do you make them aware? If they're problem aware, how
right.
do you make them, solution aware? How do you make them product aware, right? And so like taking that, the Charles Schwab, I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but I think that that's, so important to learn is like, what stages are your prospects in? And then to your point,
Yep.
like, are you just trying to shove them, are you just trying to shove them into a certain stage, right? And how do you build that asset, those marketing assets and those sales assets, right, to help with that nurturing and educational part of the process, because that's ultimately what's going to drive revenue. It's not just, you know, um, hopping on a call and trying to sell someone. It's about what are you doing, before they hop on a call? What have they
No
seen
doubt.
from you before they hop on a call, right?
No
So
doubt.
all that plays into it. And I think you bring up a really good point in that itself. And that's the things you have to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, obviously you've done a lot throughout your career, and you're starting this new journey, and you've had a lot of different experiences in different places, right? And so if I always kind of like to ask more of a loaded question towards the end here.
Of
So
course.
be prepared. But if you had to summarize some of the most important things that you've kind of learned throughout your career, that you'd be willing to share with the audience, what would you say like one or two things kind of that stand out to you maybe be?
Yeah. Um, I think as a leader, um, I try to surround myself with people who um, like I try to surround myself with people who are better than me at a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, I think knowing your strengths and leaning into my strengths while simultaneously bringing in people who have strengths that I don't have leads to a much more effective team. I think there can be a tendency as a leader of getting into hero mode and wanting to. A lot of leaders, they got to where they are because they were a hero in so many ways. They
Mhm.
performed well and whatever, and they're used to being like, "Hey, I want people to like see me to get to that next level." And the reality is, dude, you're at the next level.
Yeah.
Now, what really moves the needle is it's not going to be you. You don't have control over everything. If it's like if you have a whole department, there's different aspects of that department. If you're a multifunctional leader overseeing lots of departments, like you're just not going to be the expert at everything. Don't be threatened. Be secure in yourself. Surround yourself with people who know more than you, who are better
Yeah.
than you at different things, and lean into their strengths as well. And that makes for a better team, better organization, and then you're going to be challenged. Ultimately that's what's going to make you better as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think it's one of the things that you have to lean into, right? You have to lean into that, and it's hard to do in as like more, let's say, like new leaders, right? In that sense, but as you kind of gain that experience, you start to realize that's typically the best way to lead, right? And it's the best way
Right.
to get the most out of your people, and to be that to be that person that leads from the front in that sense,
Sure.
right? Because that's a big part of it, right? Because people want to buy into your vision, they want to buy into you as a leader, and if you're leading from the front, and you're helping people, and you're able to be with them and what they're doing, they're going to be more inclined to want to more inclined to want to help you, more inclined to want to work for you, more inclined to want to help your department. So it
No
all
doubt.
stems back from that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it takes a certain level of security as a person to uh, just allow others to shine and stuff. Like that's your goal as a leader is not for you to shine, it's for other people to shine. And
Yeah,
a certain amount of personal maturity that it takes to do that. The other thing that comes to mind is a lot more tactical and strategic, and it's just efficiency. It's
yeah,
just and because there's so many different types of efficiency. There's technological efficiency, there's personal efficiency. Just especially as a leader, you're overseeing a lot of different operations and procedures.
yeah,
And like, man, I'm just constantly looking at stuff. And okay, for example, I have salespeople constantly asking these same types of questions. What's a more efficient way than constantly answering questions over and over again, where we can build something where they can just self-serve and get the answer?
yeah,
Um, and there's so many different things as a leader where how can the process be more efficient? And
definitely.
every single um, aspect of efficiency that you add to an org makes you operate faster and more agile, and ultimately like it leads to more money. Like
Yeah,
we're in business to make money, and the more efficient you operate, and it's not just your tech, it's your internal processes, it's your communications. It's like,
yeah,
how do we make everything as efficient as it could possibly? And there's so many, and it's harder the bigger the organization gets.
Mhm.
It becomes, convoluted. And so for me, there's just this constant assessment and reassessment of what are we doing and can it be more efficient?
I love it. I couldn't agree more. I think that's like one of the things that I've been focusing on a lot more recently, and always thinking about what can be systematized. Where am I wasting my time? Where I'm having to do the same thing over and over again, and having to explain the same thing over and over again, right? How can I create an SOP, document this, and just have people visit this when they ask this question, right? And that's in
Yeah,
sales and marketing, it's so process based that sales, for example, so process based, and so is marketing, that you have to build out those right processes and have those right systems to where everything is operating efficiently. I think that's a great point. I think that should be always in the back of people's mind, like how can I make this more efficient? How can I optimize it, right? And ultimately, that's what's going to lead to the exponential returns, right?
that's
From
it.
from it itself.
That's
Uh,
it. I think in tech, like, I talked about elegant solutions at the beginning. Like, we think, or we should at least be thinking so much about making sure our tech is elegant, that gets to the answer, solves the problem in the most efficient way possible. And oftentimes, in my experience, tech orgs, their actual internal operations are anything but elegant. And so it's like you need to approach that same model that you're approaching with your technology as you do with your operations.
Definitely. Hey, Caleb, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks so much for hopping on the show, man, and sharing a little bit more about your journey and kind of what you guys are doing at Blogic. Definitely sounds like something special, and I'm excited to see where you continue to take it. But if people are listening to this, they're wanting to reach out to you or someone from your team, what are the best ways to go ahead and contact you guys?
Yeah, blogicsystems.com. Phone numbers there. You can fill out a form if you like, or just give us a call.
Perfect. And for you personally, what are some best ways for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find. That's probably the best way.
Got it.
It's
Got it.
funny. I'm a marketing guy. I'm not big on the socials outside of LinkedIn. So hit me up on LinkedIn.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, I'll make sure to include that in the description for people to go check out. Thanks again, Caleb, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. If you guys did make it all the way to the end, make sure to go, visit Caleb and the team. And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, Caleb. It's been a
Thanks
pleasure.
for having me.
All righty.